Hey everybody. So this is just a Thursday afternoon chat and yeah, just interested to see who's going to show up today and have a little discussion. So let me make sure that I know where I am. And great, there I am. Okay. So let me go also fire up this chat on over on TikTok because I often do these together because I get good set of questions from different directions. And hey, we got one person here on YouTube. If you can let me know if the audio is coming through okay. It should be, but it's always good to check. And then over here on TikTok, looks like we have a good connection. Cool. Well, hey everybody. So I've been trying out streaming more on my channel here on YouTube, and over on TikTok I've actually done quite a number of lives, just kind of getting used to. Audio is good, wonderful. I'm so glad to see it. The Life of Fernando over on TikTok. Hello again, Professor. Um, Great, okay, and audio is okay. That's wonderful. Thanks very much for letting me know. So yeah, as always, I welcome any and all questions, thoughts about college, grad school, what comes after grad school, research, teaching, just really anything on your mind at all. I'm an open book today. Probably will hang out for, maybe about 20 minutes or so. See what we can talk about. For anyone on my TikTok channel, my YouTube channel, in case you want to see what it looks like, is just youtube.com/ Tom Mullaney, my name, TOMMULLANEY. And if anyone over here is curious what goes on over on TikTok, I'm new to it. My channel there is First Gen Professor, all lowercase. I'm not sure if that, I think capitalization does matter. But great. Okay. Well, we have first comment over on TikTok, and what I'll make sure to do is always repeat the question. Actually, while we're here, let me say, during a question and answer period, always repeat the question. This goes if you're giving a public lecture, if you are certainly at a talk. It's always a good idea to repeat the question or to paraphrase or rephrase the question, because most of the time, especially in auditoriums, it is extremely hard for everyone to hear what the question is. And after a while, if someone doesn't have that habit, your audience can get a little bit resentful that they don't know what you're answering. So in this case, I'm fielding questions both from TikTok and YouTube. But in essence, I would be doing this anyway, even if you were with me in a live auditorium. But the Life of Fernando over on TikTok, I go to George Mason U, great, and never went to an actual office hour. You made it easier to do that now. That's great. I'm so happy to hear it. I'm so happy to hear it. Yeah, office hours. There are only a few. There are only a few secret weapons in college and undergrad and everything. Office hours is one of them. Office hours is just a fail-safe way to get a better engagement with your professors, better grades, better understanding of the material. It really is just this completely straightforward, like magic wand. And many people don't take advantage of it. As an undergrad, I did not, and I regret it to this day. So I'm so happy to hear that. All right, over on YouTube, Salt AG said, Professor, might you have any advice or tips For graduating seniors applying for the Fulbright scholarship, not the one for graduate students or scholars, thank you. Um, Great question. Fulbright is a really, really exciting program and really extremely competitive and very illustrious. Like if you land a Fulbright, then this is really something to celebrate. I know that there are different. I mean, the last I checked, I'm generally in the position of writing letters of recommendation for Fulbright applicants, and so I'm less familiar with how the program has changed since my day. And I know there are a number of kind of subcategories of the kinds of research that you can do. And maybe if you could tell me in another comment, are you planning to apply for kind of research abroad? Is there a language dimension to what you're considering? Or is there an entirely new sub program to Fulbright that I might not be aware of? So kind of like when you go to the Department of Motor Vehicles, I'm going to ask you to just get some information, but when you come back, you can skip right to the front of the line, so to speak. Question over here on TikTok. When did you know you wanted to be a professor, and how did you go about it, or did it find you? When did I know that I wanted to be a professor? That's a great question. And I think it kind of snuck up on me. It's not something, if you had met me as a little kid, I didn't say I wanted to be a professor. I think I went through many different career fantasies as a little kid. I'm talking dozens, if not hundreds. But the thing that was probably consistent among all of my various daydreams is research. I've always really been drawn. I didn't know that word at the time growing up, probably. Like, I didn't call these things research. But I really enjoy finding things out, and I really enjoy trying to find things out kind of on my own. Not I don't mean without help or with, autonomously, but when I have dedicated a great deal of energy and time to try to figure something out, it stays with me. It sticks with me in ways that it just isn't true when I read something in a book or when I watch a documentary. Of course, I still do all of those things, but there's something about the hard-won knowledge that really stays with me, or and to this day. Like I enjoy far more working with primary sources than doing literature reviews or surveys of secondary literature. I feel I'm pretty confident. I'm pretty skilled in dealing with primary source analysis and dealing with archival collections and so forth. And I am less skilled at, if you were to ask me to write a literature review for a state of the field essay for a journal, I would probably say no. If I did, I'd probably regret saying yes. And then if I did, I would probably not enjoy the process. There are some people who understand that art form of how to navigate, like almost literary critics, and so something about that always stayed with me. And then, obviously, as you can tell by the fact that I'm trying to do two simultaneous lives, and I have this TikTok channel and this YouTube channel, I do enjoy sharing what I've learned with other people. I think it feels good and it feels useful. A way to be in life is to try to help other people with things that you went through or had to figure out for yourself, to help them maybe figure out something for themselves in a bit more expedited, economical way, but all with the understanding that everyone has to figure this stuff out for themselves. And then, so that's the teaching element. And then another element which people don't talk about enough with the life in academia is I really enjoy making things and doing things. So I've curated a museum exhibition that traveled in the United States. I write and record music I did a I did a Kickstarter campaign for one of my books in the past. I enjoy working with designers to make the posters for my conferences. I organize conferences, and academia, if you reach a certain, well, actually, academia from the start of it, even from grad school on, even from college on, there are obviously varying degrees of stability. There are a lot of people who are at risk, adjuncting and moving around, and there's a lot of instability. So what I'm describing is not just even across the board, but there is something about academia that allows for a lot of exploration of of the many different facets of yourself, um, in ways that in other professions I don't really know, but I'm not sure if I were a lawyer that I would get to curate an exhibit and do a Kickstarter campaign, or have a touring band and have a career as a recording musician, or if I were a doctor, or if thinking back to my old jobs, if I made a career being a manager of a coffee shop. I'm not sure that I would have the same kind of flexibility. So I think those things really congealed, and I I I cannot think of a different profession that I would enjoy as much as this one. And it is not. Oh, of course he's at Stanford. He's saying this. It's you have to understand that when I applied for jobs way back when, I applied to 20 jobs, and if I was single at the time, I had no regional commitment, I would have taken pretty much any one of those jobs. And I think I might certainly not have had many of the privileges and possibilities that I do being at an R1 university, but my mindset is such that if I were teaching at any of the places I applied, I would not be thinking to myself, oh, but I've got to climb the ladder, this is meaningless, and I've got to climb the Times higher education ladder of ranked universities and colleges. It's like, no, I don't believe that at all. I think I would have dived into my career where I was and made the best of it, and then of course, you know, um, always kept an eye out for things that might be a better home for me, but not out of this sense of it's Harvard or bust or something like that. I have met some people who really, I've even met grad students, and when they go on the job market, almost have this attitude of like anything below Cornell is sort of beneath me, or is just like a holding station until I apply later. And I find that I'm allergic to that mindset. I'm really allergic. It's not like you just take any job that's thrown at you. You still have to make decisions, especially if you have a family. But the idea of like, well, this is what I get being who I am, and anything, I'm not, I'm not, I'm not down with that. I went on for a little bit. Sorry about that. What am I a professor of? I can just tell you that real quick. I'm a professor of modern Chinese history, Asian history, and the history of technology and science. And I also work in the history of race and ethnicity, largely in Asia, and then transnational global history. Cool. So back over in YouTube. Oh, Salt AG, thank you very much. So you come right back up to the top of the queue here. I'm considering the study research one. We're discussing Fulbright here, and we'll be applying this year or next. I was wondering whether I should try for credentials such as Fulbright or such before applying. The number one piece of advice that I would give, there's a lot to this, of course, is that you want to get your hands on models. So if you know anyone, or if you are 1 degree or 2 degrees removed from anyone who has ever landed the exact grant that you're going after, you have every excuse to cold call that person and write a polite message saying, I'm applying. I saw on the Fulbright page that you were a past recipient, because these things are celebrated on websites, so-and-so received it. And you can, find their contact information and write a nice, kind, thoughtful message. And say, of course, if you're not willing to share, I totally understand. And of course, I wouldn't copy it. I would just use it as a point of reference. But there is something really empowering and magical about seeing something that actually worked and more importantly, seeing more than one thing that worked. And because it gives you a sense of like, oh, I kind of get the ballpark of the tone and the structure of what I'm thinking about, but I see that these two people or three people did it differently. So it's not just like there's one highway to my destination. There are multiple pathways, and it also helps you just avoid, kind of just basic silly mistakes that we all make as writers. Um, so the first thing, I know it's a little bit of a kind of cheat advice, but it is probably the most useful single piece of advice I could give you, is to get your hands, and don't be shy about reaching out and trying to get your hands on some exemplars, specifically for the grant that you have in mind. That's one thing I would highly recommend. That's why I wanted to hear if it was the study one. The language one, I think the language one has different kinds of, but the study research one, um, there's more, I think, of an art form to writing that particular Fulbright grant. Cool. Let me just scan over here to TikTok channel. If anyone's joining, there's 7 people on YouTube, about, I don't know, about maybe 7 or so over on TikTok. So on TikTok, I'm First Gen Professor, all lowercase, if you're ever over there. And then on YouTube, I am youtube.com/Tom Mullaney, my name, TOMMULLANEY, just in case, but I'll be bouncing back and forth. Cool. All right. Let's see here. Get lumped in. This is an interesting one. I don't normally do a lot of politics on this particular channel, but do you think it's unfair that all professors get lumped in as being liberal and damaging the United States? Well, I think so. That's a question from over on TikTok. The way that, I mean, I think the things that I find the most unfair, or the most just really, really just upsetting about the portrayal and assumptions about academia by the wider world is I care less about the question of assumptions about political allegiance, meaning that if people assume that all professors are liberal, that matters less to me than this very strong undercurrent, which has been which was fomented quite a lot in the last 4 years under Trump, of anti-intellectualism, anti-expert. And the reason, I understand parts of where it comes from, but I also know that it is engineered. There are people in very powerful positions who themselves hold degrees from Harvard and other places, who benefit and who attempt to circulate and propagate ideas of popular anti-intellectualism, anti-research, anti-expert, even though they themselves don't fundamentally believe in those things. And it's a very dangerous game. I mean, it serves specific short-term goals. It serves specific short-term goals because if you can damage the reputation of news media, if you can damage the reputation of scholars and researchers and teachers, then if you can sort of just systematically erode the forms of trust which definitely society relies upon. Like when I go to the doctor, I have to, when I get on a commercial airline jet, I'm not checking the pilot's work. I can't. I'm not trained to do that. I have to engage in an act of trust. Heaven forbid something, bad happened and I was rushed to an ER. I don't get to, check the work of the ER surgeon. And neither, would someone who brought me. So it's undoubted that society especially relies upon forms of trust that if someone has gone through 15 years of medical school, yes, there are bad surgeons, there are good surgeons, there are better and worse, but at some level, a surgeon is a surgeon, and a surgeon is not a lawyer, and a lawyer is not a mechanic, and a mechanic is not an aviator is not a plumber. And these are all deep areas of experience, and there is, societies built on levels of trust in that form. And when you systematically try to destroy those forms of trust, well, how do you know these experts are just this, or fake news, or whatever it is? The goal is very clear. The goal is to destabilize systems of trust so that one could build alternate systems of trust, belief systems that are tied, well, in different parts of the country, in different parts of the world, at different parts of time. Could be an autocrat, could be a dictator, could be a political party, could be a particular movement, a particular organization. But are forms of belief and trust which are tied to ideology, to ideology in the sort of stricter sense of the word, of a really spelled out, rigid belief system. And people know that, well, if people who when I say trust, I don't mean believe everything that is being said. Like, I don't assume in any way, nor would I want everyone who sits in my classroom or in my discussion to believe every word that comes out of my mouth. That would be counterproductive, because that would be at odds with my job as a professor and a teacher, is to help people become more self-sufficient critical thinkers, so that when they are confronted with ambiguity, when they are confronted with uncertainty, they know what to do with it. And so them believing everything I said is that's like a room full of toasters, not a room full of, but if someone is just instinctually going through life saying, like, well, how does that physician know? Well, how does that aviator know? Well, how does this know? It's incredibly hard to repair that trust, to rebuild it. And B, things can go really bad when at a societal level, the trust in expertise, whatever that expertise is, and I don't just mean white collar jobs, I mean expertise across the board. It is hard to lay a highway down in a way that it won't crack in a year or cause some major accident, or a bridge won't fall apart. Like, we're talking about all levels of expertise. When a society undergoes an erosion of that form of trust, things can go horribly wrong. Like, this is like Great Leap Forward China wrong. That's the part that really frightens me. Because if there were, and unfortunately, that tendency is not equal across at least the U.S. political spectrum. There are some parts of the political spectrum in the U.S. that are engaged in that kind of activity more than others. And that's where the politics come in. If you gave me a world in which you had a wide political spectrum, but where everybody was on the same page when it came to, I'm going to be very teacherly, very professorly here, like source analysis and corroboration and dealing with evidence and how to build well-built questions. We don't often think about this, but building a question is what I know how to do. Someone watching might know how to build a jet aircraft. I know how to build questions. And just like you can build a jet airplane wrong, and it can have devastating consequences if you build it wrong, if you build a question wrong, there can be devastating consequences as well. So really, when people do PhDs in my case, humanities, social sciences, what we are really trained to do at the core of it is how to build questions, which sounds like, well, just a question is just something with a question mark at the end of it. It's like, no, I mean, technically, grammatically, yes. But there can be things that we ask about the world around us that are extremely badly built questions. And that's the part of it. So like I'm riffing on this for a little bit because I think this is worth it. This belief that what happens inside universities is somehow divorced from reality, like, it's just navel gazing, it's just, you know, pardon this sort of term, but it's just kind of masturbation. It's extremely sad that people think of it this way. What we do, what you learn in college, what you think about, if you take it seriously, is life or death stuff. It is extremely, um, like this is blood on the wall kind of issues, um, and that's what that's the thing that bothers me the most. And I would say one thing about patriotism in general and the idea of it is true. Historians, I'm an historian. Good history is subversive. History was born as a cousin, like basically almost a handmaiden of nation states, to build national narratives, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But very quickly, its job is to say, uh, I'm sorry, that's not true. This whatever the sort of simplistic, flattened, patriotic narrative might be of any country on earth, historians are the ones to say, I don't know how to tell you this, but this ain't so. Now, does that mean you can't feel love of home, love of place? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Uh, it to me, I'll put it this way. I think there are forms of true love when it comes to one's home, one's larger community, and I think that extends up to nation states. Um, there are forms of true love and there are forms of distorted love. Distorted love, I can start with that. That's when your love of something, be it a family member, a partner, a country, your home, if your love depends upon you systematically not seeing things about it, systematically not accepting that your family member is a drug addict or that your grandfather was abusive or something, but I love grandpa. But if your love of someone, something, depends on systematically not seeing who that or what that person is or has done, or that's not love in my view. That is not love. So a patriotism born on that kind of love to me is completely fake. True love is a love that's like extremely complicated, extremely messy, contradictory. I know this. I understand this. I accept this. I can't defend what my grandfather said or did. I can't deny how much it disturbs me about my... But I love them. And it confuses even me, and I think about it, and so forth and so on. And that form of love, that's what historians and many other humanists and social science, that's what we deal with. We say, here is the historical figure who you have turned into a kind of plastic figurine, who has not... This figurine you keep in your mind has nothing to do with the one who lived and died in real life. And so if your love requires on that person staying fake, a plastic figurine, I don't know, then, well, but if you want to understand how flawed or how multidimensional or how contradictory or whatever this person was, this place was, this movement was, then let's talk. Cool. I don't know if you're still there, but that's my view on this. Gosh, I really went somewhere there. I got passionate. Passion. Real Goose, didn't know you had a YouTube channel, dude. Great, glad to see a new channel. Cool, awesome. Yeah, there are a lot of videos on my YouTube channel, a lot now, all about navigating academia, and they're obviously longer than they are on TikTok. TikTok, they're short. Um, so, okay, let me see here. So that came from TikTok, so let me be fair here. Um, Chris Gu, oh, Lin Feng Liang, hi, how are you? Um, Hi, Professor, and I probably will only be on for a few more minutes. I'm actually a high school student, but I figured you might be able to give some advice with your wisdom. My wisdom. I like that. I'm not really that wise, but let me pull this up so I'm not constantly looking down at my laptop. I've been mostly interested in STEM, great, but I was recently accepted by a research program to study STS. So, in case you don't know what these are, STEM, science, technology, engineering, medicine, probably know that one. STS is slightly less known, science, technology, and society. And this is basically the study of STEM from the perspective of the social sciences and the humanities, generally speaking. Is there any advice you can give for students who are entering a new field of research? Great question. Yeah, when you're entering a new field of research, you want to try to begin getting a map of the territory. And so at first, you don't want to just pick up the first book you find and read it, because you will eventually read a lot, but you don't want to do that right away. I think the first thing you want to do is try to find book reviews. So find a peer-reviewed journal. So STS, let's see, well, I'm thinking of societies. History of Science Society, HSS. They have an associated journal. Society for the History of Technology, SHOT. They have an associated journal. The 4S, like Studies of Science and Society, I forget what it means, like the number 4, the letter S. And there are others. Get holds of their journals, and you can find them on places like JSTOR, Project Muse, sometimes Google Scholar, and read the section, skim and read the section of the journal that are about reviews of books. And these reviews are a few paragraphs long. They might be sometimes they're a longer page long, but they're very short. And you'll start to get like a taste of what's going on in this world. And don't just read one review, like skim 30, 40. It'll take you a few hours, but a nice cup of coffee. And it'll start to give you a feel for the language and the kinds of things that are going on. And then I would try to find one of the books that is reviewed that jumps out at you. And in addition to reading it, and this is very important, go immediately to the bibliography of that book and just literally read the bibliography from A to Z. Again, to get a feel for what's there, the kinds of things that are written about, and very importantly, if something you see is like, holy moly, that sounds so cool. Like, I have no idea that one could do a study of blah or blah or blah. That's where I would start when you're trying to get into and understand a new field. Great question. Okay, wow, there's so many great questions here. This is just a kind of a shorter chat, and so I'm gonna need to dive off. But I ask, if you are on the YouTube live, please copy and paste the comments you made here and post them in some other video, or you can direct message me. And same thing for TikTok. Please repost your question, especially if I didn't get to it. But even if I did, either in a direct message to me or in my Q&A section. This way I won't lose track of them, because the comments on the lives sometimes disappear in weird ways. So it's a real pleasure to meet you all. I hope you'll subscribe and keep, so we can keep in touch. And yeah, I'll see you soon. All right, bye everybody.